Hey everybody, this is Shane with Shane's Books and Review, and I hope that you are having a wonderful day today. We will be talking about the third book, the third installment of the Bobiverse, which is All These Worlds by Dennis E. Taylor. If my throat sounds a little bit scratchy or if I look a little bit sunburned, it's probably because I am. There was a festival this last weekend, and it was very enjoyable. But that might be why I have more of a red tint to myself than I normally do. Now, on to the book. Like I mentioned, this is indeed the third one. It is slated for a fourth book to come out, which I'm actually excited about. The reason being is, previously I read a series, and I think I should have stopped at maybe book 2, mainly because the ideas were depleted and it wasn't really a strong read. Now, in this, however, in the third book, All These Worlds, that really wasn't an issue. It seemed like in the first one there was like a decisiveness, there was like 3 movements to me, and it left you on the edge of your seat of, oh, what's going to happen next? And then in the second one, it seemed like problems were growing exponentially, and the more that Bob became involved in any form of himself, the more that things seemed to be getting out of hand. In the third one, I was really starting to worry that it was going to get to the point where there were so many things going on that it wouldn't be able to be resolved, that it would be just a hot mess, really. But this wasn't the case. Not at all, really, and delightfully so. The things, in my opinion, humble as it is, that needed to be resolved were, and that had to do with the Brazilian probe, Medeiros. And there was actually 2 battles with him. The first one didn't quite go so well. The second one, I think it may be in conclusion. Humanity, just being stubborn little creatures, not wanting to really further themselves. I can not really relate to Bob in this because I'm not in his situation, but if I was in his situation, having multiple versions of myself floating around and helping shepherd humanity off of a planet that is getting ready to die, to go to other places, how frustrating it would be to see different factions trying to put their influence, worse than a dictatorship really, of if you do something we don't like, then there's consequences and people will get hurt or moved or whatever. So that was a big part of his plight through these 3 books. Is by nature humans don't like to change. We just don't. We like our own little groove. We like experiences outside of that groove, and therein lies the problem. For the Bobs that came from Riker's line, there's not so much, I don't want to say dissension because that's not really right, but they're kind of fed up with dealing with humans because the humans expect them to do pretty much everything, and they want more of a hands-off, you guys get settled and we're out of here type of a deal. Those are kind of the main things going on, right? Medeiros, moving humanity, others. But behind all that, there's also the emotional attachments that the different Bobs are having. For instance, Bridget, her husband has passed and he went to their funeral at the very end of the last book. Now the androids that Bob has been building have gotten very lifelike. There's a couple things that he wanted to add to it, and maybe they get added, maybe they don't get added, but the long of it all is, now he's starting to experience real-world problems again, where he's not just this disembodied entity living inside of a ship, building things for humanity to get their feet on the ground or anchored to the sky. As he starts to interact with these people, he starts to get, well, a lot of hate from some people, a lot of confusion from others. And he has an especially hard time with Bridget's family. Some of the people that are in her family don't want her dating him, and some of them are just flat out spiteful about things. That's something really big to wrap your head around. If this was real, if this wasn't just a book, let's say technology was to that point where somebody could have their brain completely scanned and their consciousness, everything about them, the thought processes, so it would be a identical copy of this individual that you couldn't tell the difference if you were talking to them on the phone or texting or whatever. If it was the exact same person, even though they just didn't have a physical body, what kind of moral issues would that cause? What kind of doubts or what kind of basic inadequacies would people feel, being that, yes, it is that person, plus they also have the computer power behind them that they can access most anything and do everything just on the fly. It could be a very intimidating situation, really, for some. And some don't deal with that kind of a thing very well. On to some of my favorite parts. Yes, indeed. Bridget and Howard, their relationship is a really unique one. I just mentioned it, but the reason why I find it so unique is it just shows how human this entity inside of a cube really is, because he came from being a human and went straight into it. He's got the same desires and wants as most everybody else would, of wanting to find the other person that's more of his yin to his yang. And he found it in Bridget, but he had to wait for quite some time. Not to mention him playing dirty poker whenever it came to her being more of a biologist, and then him finding life on a gas giant, bringing her into a VR where she could see it, all that kind of thing. Yeah, it was a pretty unique little piece there. Another favorite part of mine was definitely whenever Medeiros got it this time. I'm not sure if it's the last time that we'll see him. I kind of hope it is, because it seems like every time that something starts to go right, well, that he pops his ugly head up and starts chucking things at planets or tries to destroy a Bob. He is crafty, though. And in the first fight scene in between him and the Bobs that were using their scut links to control the rovers remotely, he might have got the better of them then. But in the second part of that, ooh, did he get his? And he did kind of take a coward's way out. Instead of fighting to the end, he just blew himself up. Then again, on the same token, just the other side, how many other instances of Bob got trashed whenever they first were finding the others? I did enjoy watching, while I was reading, the story unfold about Bridget and Howard, and I hope that they have a good life together. But I do like the way that things were resolved in this one, and the way that things were left open, really. If you guys don't want spoilers, this is where to stop. So I'm going to go ahead and say it. Please subscribe, check the bell, click the like, share. Shameless self-promo. Yes, just right then and there. With that being said, let's throw a clock up real quick. Now that we've got a clock running, you've got about 4 seconds until it starts. There it is. Time's up. All right, now. First off and foremost, Dennis Taylor did an excellent job on the last fight for humanity. It was well done. I like the planning that went into it. I like the foresight from both sides. I felt like it was almost an honest portrayal of what could have happened if, again, it was a real thing and not just sci-fi. And there's just so many little details in this compared to other books that I've read when it came to the end game, really. Everything that Bob had learned up to that point was put to a test, and he barely won. But I really think that he pulled things together at the last second and saved humanity's collective butt, which was pretty cool. My favorite part of the book was whenever finally he got to become Siberius. He got to become free and just travel. Because now things are finally ticking off. You know, Medeiros is probably gone. The others are probably gone. The only thing that's left for Bob to do for humanity, beyond the interstruggling of people wanting to keep a structure that's not good for the whole to be resolved, is just to help get the rest of the people from point A to point B, scatter them out a little bit so this whole species has a better chance of surviving, and then he can do what he was made to do, go explore. And I really think that Bob, the way that he was wired beforehand, before all this, he would have loved doing this anyway. Regardless of being a probe, he was the type of mind that would enjoy the exploration of finding out what's here. And so I have to say, after these 3 books and reading them in succession to one another, I've highly enjoyed the whole thing because of the amount of detail Whenever I first started reading this, I didn't really consider it hard science fiction at all because it was so lighthearted in the first book. But then in the second book, things kind of go a little bit dark. And in the last book, it's like, whoa, are we going to pull it off or not? And I really wasn't expecting it. But everything kind of was put in its own nice, neat little place by the end of the book. And that I appreciate in a big way. Instead of leaving huge gaping holes in the story, things were kind of brought back around for everything. And that was pretty good. That was well done. The others were dispatched, throwing 2 planets into the sun that they were building a Dyson sphere around. Pretty clever stuff, that. So now we've reached that point. It is the end of the video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it in a big way. If you guys happen to find a good book in between now and the next video, please feel free to let me know about it. I would love to read it along with you guys. Since there hasn't been any suggestions this last week, I'm going to go back to Sherlock. We're going to pick up where we were. That will be the next video. And please don't forget to subscribe and click the like. The like actually does do something for the channel. And the cowbell. Ring the cowbell. Make sure that the notifications are actually on. Yeah. Again, thank you so much for watching the video. Appreciate it in a big way. If you have any comments to leave, do it down there, and I'll get back with you. Beyond that, this has been Shane with Shane's Books and Review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.